And we are back. Yes, it is your host, Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast, episode number 267. We are live streaming tonight on X, Facebook, and we're making our debut on YouTube. So welcome aboard. If you have any comments or questions, we'll try to field them as we can. So we're really excited about this opportunity. We're brought to you by FlyersNittyGritty.com, Summit Adjusters, Jim South Street, and now featured on the exciting Hockey Forum website, hockeyhotstove.com. Check us out. Go there and you'll see the Flyers logo. If you scroll down, you'll see our logo, and you can click on all of our YouTube shows, including this video. So we're real excited about that. So Chef B, let's say hello and get your first thoughts for tonight's show.
Yeah. Well, hi, everybody out there in YouTube land. It's nice to have you on board. And so the good thing is, it's kind of like a lull in the summer here. Got a little bit of information. We settled the Porter Martone thing. I think we're going to have a little bit of a nice little chat tonight and see what we could square away and get you set up for the next season.
Yeah, we're going to get people caught up. And, of course, joining us as well is the great Dan Silver. Dan, what's on your mind?
Just braving the heat here on the East Coast, and it's the dog days of summer. But as Chef said, we got some interesting Flyer stuff to discuss, and it seems like there's always something going on in Flyers land or in the NHL. So it should be a nice, relaxed night, and hope that some people are joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we hit 100 in Tampa today, and from what I understand, that has not happened in modern times since they were measuring, based on what I saw. But irrespective of any of that, Chef, I just wanted to, for those listening to this on the audio podcast, obviously on a delay, we're not going to be having the ads the way they have been put in. So I just wanted to give Chef the opportunity to talk about Summit Adjusters, because you are an adjuster and you have some new announcements about some locales that now can avail themselves of your services. And of course, we're going to want the information about phone number and so on and so forth. What can you tell the folks?
So if you have damage to your home, well, whether you think it's trivial or not, call Summit Public Adjusters, ask for the chef. What we do is we get you more money to get your home back in order. So the good thing about it is all of our guys we have some guys that most of us actually are licensed in PA, New Jersey, and Delaware. I'm in Delaware. I'm working on Maryland. I know a couple guys, even if you have friends down in Florida, for example, I know we can help out there, at least with advice. And we work in relationship with other adjusters across the country that we can help get to you. If we can't get to you ourselves, we can put you on the right direction for somebody. So if you have any questions, even questions, you can DM me on Twitter, on Chef the Left B on Twitter, or you can call 215-752-0560 and ask for the chef, and we'll come out. We'll be very prompt. Everybody answers the line. Every call is returned, and we'll make sure that we get you on the path to recovery, and the big bad insurance companies don't try to take advantage of you. You should always have somebody on your side.
You get it. So that is Summit Adjusters. And let's have that phone number one more time for the folks.
215-752-0560.
You got it. So just it was announced today, Dan, that the Flyers rookies will play a pair of games at the PPL Center in Allentown versus the Rangers. This is something that's happened before. The dates are Friday, September 12th, and Saturday, the 13th, the following day. So the first game is at 7 p.m. The second one is at 5 p.m. Of course, we're starving for hockey now. So, Dan, what's maybe, we're going to call tonight's show Flyers News Roundup, what's one of the top stories that we have listed here that you might want to start the show with?
Well, the hockey topic, I would say this week that has been on people's minds is the situation, the lawsuit with Carter Hart and the rest of the guys up in Canada. The formal verdict was handed down, not guilty. And I fielded a lot of questions from people asking me, hey, do you think that Carter Hart's going to be coming back to the Flyers? What's your opinion on this? And I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to get into the legalities, but I do know that I think that obviously these players were they became unrestricted free agents. When this sort of lawsuit happened, and Gary Bettman said, we're going to see what happens, and then we're going to determine if these guys are, potentially eligible to play in the NHL down the road. I don't think the NHL has come out yet and said anything, unless I've missed it, that these guys are eligible to play. So I think the first step is going to be that the NHL is going to come out and have to do that. Now, a lot of people are out there saying, well, they were found not guilty. Obviously, the NHL is a little bit of a different thing. I mean, a lot of this court case was public, so you got to see some of the details of what the plaintiff had to say. And I guess it's going to be up to the NHL if they determine that these guys are fit to play in the NHL. So let's say that these guys are determined to be able to come back to the NHL. Based off of what I've heard, I don't know how much interest Carter Hart has in coming back to Philadelphia. And I said this to somebody that, just from a mental perspective, he went through a lot when he was here with the Flyers in terms of this situation, because there was stuff going on behind the scenes. Look, the Flyers knew that this was a possibility that they could get, indicted on this and have to face a court case. So I think that Carter Hart, probably, if you're him and you're thinking back, I would think that there's a lot of kind of emotions and maybe even trauma associated with being with the Flyers while you're sort of going through this process. I'm not sure that he would want to come back to Philadelphia, and maybe he'd be more comfortable playing in a city in Canada, like Edmonton or Montreal or something like that. So, so basically the bottom line is the NHL is going to have to allow these guys to come back to the NHL, and then a team's going to have to take a chance on them. Now, we were having a little debate on DM this week, me and Chef, about the length of a contract with Carter Hart. I do think that if the NHL comes out and says that these guys are fine to play again, we're talking about a goalie who, when he's on his game, he could be one of the best goalies in the league. And I do think that there will be some teams starved for goaltending, like in Edmonton, that might want to commit to Carter for more than a few years. I mean, it's not a situation like where he's had substance abuse or something that's going to impact his on-ice performance from a physical perspective. You would think that these guys have stayed in shape. Carter Hart's obviously a very good athlete. I would think a team will give a multi-year contract to Carter Hart if he's allowed to come back. I know, Chef, you kind of had some, at least when we were looking at online, you maybe had some other thoughts on it.
So my opinion would be, okay, we'll go with the fact that they're letting them play. I think, and I said this to Isaiah pre-show too, I think the other players that were involved in this, let's face it, they were not going to be big-time NHL players anyway. And I'm not, taking shots at them. It's just a fact. Had they been as good as they should have been or could have been for the NHL, they would have been playing more games in the NHL. So I'll just leave it at that. So basically, we're just talking about Carter Hart here. I do believe somebody out there will take a chance. And I think in my opinion, it would have been like a $6 million. If it was the Flyers, I think it would be like a $6 million to $7 million prove it contract, somewhere in the range of what, Ryan Ellis's, whatever you're trying to do, what you can get rid of that salary long-term, just put it on the books there. But the reason why I'm saying this is because when you take a goalie out of his environment for that extended period of time, and we do have a frame of reference for this.
Well, can I interject something real fast?
Sure.
Right now, and we're getting feedback from our comments section, and they're definitely dead on. Vineet Singh, Peter Tom Willis, thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, right now, Bettman's made a declaration that the players are ineligible to play for now. The NHLPA shot back and said, we don't know about that. They're not guilty and blah, blah, blah. So look, they're going to have to duke it out.
Yeah. And I'm saying that. And I was just doing my thing was for sake of argument, because the Flyers kind of have a precedent here, because look at what happened to, oh my God, I'm brain farting now because I lost my train of thought. Fedotov. He was out of commission for how? And as Dan will tell you, he was probably one of the best KHL goalies at the point where he went MIA and was shipped off to Siberia. And he never kind of came back to form, even with a full team, with a full year with the team. So this thing, this thing that's going to happen, I think it's going to have to be a show me that you still got it type of thing in order to make it work. And now let's just say he goes on a run, and he's got above, save percentage over 900, like we haven't had it since he left. And let's just say that he goes on a run, a winning streak, 7-8 games or whatever, and he's really killing it. Then I think a lot of people wouldn't be upset. But this could have a potential to jump in the face if he doesn't do well. This is going to be like, see, I told you thing. I'm not debating the ethics of bringing somebody back. I'm just trying to look at cold hard facts and say, okay, if he does come back, there's a chance he's going to be like Fedotov and be out of it for a couple of years, and that's not going to look good. That's not going to help us at all either. Or somebody else could have taken a gamble, and it could be the same thing for them. So I'm not talking about whether it's right or wrong. I'm just talking about that.
Okay.
I mean, I do think that there's a big difference between Carter Hart and Ivan Fedotov. I mean, Fedotov had 1 or 2 pretty good years in the KHL. You never really know how goaltenders from there are going to come over here. Carter Hart is a proven very good NHL goalie. I wouldn't compare those two in terms of their comeback. I think for Hart, it's going to be, and this does sort of lend a little bit of credence to what you're talking about, it's going to be more of a mental thing, right? Because that at away games that Carter Hart's playing in, if they let him back in the NHL, away games, there's going to be all kinds of things being yelled at him and signs, and it's going to be it's going to be mental fortitude that he's going to have to make it through coming back. I wouldn't compare it to Fedotov, but it's a valid point that there will be some questions as to how he comes back. I just think that there will be a team that will be willing to go more than 1 year if he is allowed back in the NHL, just to take that shot, especially since goaltending is a hard commodity to find.
Yeah, Chef, why don't you close this out? Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't debating like the skill level. I was just debating the time off and how it could affect you. Because if like we've all had that, like, oh my God, I missed a test when we were in school, and like you're sitting there going, oh, I gotta go back in, I gotta take this test, and you kind of psych yourself out sometimes. I'm not saying he's taking a test, but I'm just saying your head can get in your way sometimes. We all know that Carter Hart's a way better goalie than Fedotov. I'm just saying, out of time, when you're out missing that much time, it's going to affect you somehow.
Okay, I think somebody who's watching the show is probably waiting for us to editorialize. We don't want to go too deep in this. Here's the bottom line. The worst thing that happened is some guys that were guilty kind of got away with it because perhaps a traumatized victim couldn't recall certain things, and it generated inconsistencies. At the very least, I'd say these guys use some really, really bad judgment. They know they're under a microscope. I'm sure they had, and this is where, Hockey Canada is really getting, criticized, is the guidance these kids are getting. To get yourself in that type of situation, they're the BMOCs, right? The big man on campus, and it's going to put them in situations where they can abuse the privilege. And I think at the very least, you can say that they did that. And I think it's also fair to say it went beyond that. So we'll have to see. I agree with the assessment that over time, when the NHLPA and the league are done battling out, somebody, and it could be as early as like midway through this season, is going to sign. Probably Hart is the only guy that has a real NHL future. I think the other guys probably have to go to Europe or what have you. Then I think they're going to move on, and he'll probably get an opportunity. And I agree with Dan. I don't think it'll be here, because at the very least, I don't think Roberts would agree with that. The head of Comcast. So there's too much blowback. But so I think. Moving on to something, we got an update. Reporter Martone, Dan, made the decision to go to college, to go to Michigan State. They had the name and image license, the NIL money, and they had more than Penn State had. They just, giving McKenna in that circumstance. So it figures that Michigan State was going to have a lot that they could throw at Porter Martone. And we just heard from him today about what went into his decision and also how supportive or, how the Flyers felt about it.
Yeah. And, I think we talked about this. I think it's a great decision by Porter Martone. Here are the choices. He was either going to go back to Brampton and dominate like he did last year, or he was going to try and make the Flyers out of camp this fall. But I think the happy medium was going to college for 1 year. I don't think it's going to be more than 1 year. I think it's going to be 1 year, unless he really struggles this year, which I wouldn't anticipate happening. But I think that the Flyers and him kind of made this decision jointly. And obviously, a lot of people out there said, oh, what happens if this is the same as a Cutter Gauthier situation? I love the quote today from Porter Martone, where he basically said that this is the best decision for him personally and also for the Philadelphia Flyers, because by going to college, he can be in a better position to help the Flyers win a cup 5 years down the road. So right. I think that was actually, I think the fact that Porter Martone said that, he knows that people were thinking about the Cutter Gauthier situation. And by saying this is going to help him win a cup with the Flyers, he's just hoping to diffuse all of that. Like, there is no chance that Martone is not going to sign with the Flyers. And if he has a good season, it'll probably be at the end of the season. Now, of course, Michigan State has got a very good team. Not only Porter Martone are they adding this year, but they're adding Caden Lindstrom, who was top 5 pick last year for Columbus, I believe. And assuming he's over his back injury, you talk about a top line. You put those two guys on the top line. They also have, they have Shane Van Zage, who the Flyers took in the second round. One of my favorites. They've got Charlie Strommel, who's a big center. They've got, I think Riker Lee committed there too, who's
not sure about that. Yeah.
Really talented player who was drafted this year. Mikey D'Angelo. They've got a lot of really talented players coming in there this year. So I think it's a great decision. Now, if Michigan State goes to the Final Four, the Frozen Four, it's going to bat right up against the end of the NHL season. So I don't think Flyers fans should necessarily expect to see him play games for the Flyers this year. But maybe he turns pro, plays for the Phantoms if they're in the playoffs. There's like 2 games after the Frozen Four ends in the NHL, like a few days after, so it'll be very tight. But either way, I think this is going to be really good for Porter Martone. I think maybe playing with Caden Lindstrom is going to be helpful. He'll get a lot of power play minutes. I'm sure that they made some assurances to Porter Martone to get him to go to Michigan State. So I think it's a great decision all around, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do there. There'll be some that conference is going to be crazy with obviously with Gavin McKenna at Penn State. There's going to be a lot of good games. May have to take a drive over to Penn State to see Michigan State and Penn State play. So I think it's great. Definitely. Carson Dort was with Michigan State, and I think the Flyers got a lot of feedback from him on the coaching there. So I think it's a very comfortable situation for both the Flyers and Porter Martone. I think it was a great decision.
Yeah, and Chef, I think also in that conversation he had when he was interviewed by TSN, he talked about how the Flyers were okay with whatever decision he made. So I think everybody here is very conscious and sticking to the script in terms of the anti-Cutter Gauthier result, right?
Well, I think when we talked about it last show when we had Kevin on, I think I'd said if you were asking my opinion, I think I would try to stress to him the whole college route, because hopefully you're going to do good, and at the least you can go and help the Phantoms in a playoff run. But Phantoms made the playoffs last year, and I'm looking at all. They made a lot of changes, coach, everything, players, and the Phantoms look to be a very fun ticket next season. I think there's a lot of young skill down there, and if it all plays out, and I think that coming in at the end, you could get at the end of a season, you could get some much needed pro playoff experience. I think that would be great for him. So, and also too, I love the fact that they both said it was a mutual decision. They both thought it was the best thing. And I think that needed to come out because it needed to alleviate the scares of all the Flyers fans thinking that the whole Cutter Gauthier thing was going to come back and bite them on the butt again. and that's not the case in this. We knew that there wasn't many options, and I would love for this kid to come out and be a sensation and make the team straight away. There's not many kids that can do that anymore, and I don't want to see him regress. Though I don't want to see him. He's mature, but let's just give him a little more, as the chef would say, a little more cooking time, and to make sure that he comes out just right.
Yeah, and the thing about the NCAA, yeah.
No, that they also have one of the best goalies in the country in Trey Augustine, the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So they have, and Riker Lee is going there. He had a big game in the World Junior Junior Showcase. So that roster's loaded. They've got one of the best goalies in the conference in the nation. So yeah, it's going to be exciting watching him. I can't wait to see him and Van Sage out there maybe together at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing is you mentioned Riker Lee got that assist from Jack Murtagh, who makes a diving play and just kind of shovels the puck over to Riker Lee, closes and gets that goal at the World Junior Summer Showcase. And I guess it's an obvious segue for us to talk about that. The Flyers have 7 players represented at this tournament that include Porter Martone for Canada. Spencer Gill is there as well. He's kind of on the bubble as to whether he'll make it. We also have Jack Murtagh and Shane Van Sage, who I think also would qualify as being on the bubble for Team USA. Jack Berglund, who is definitely a shoo-in to make it. For Sweden, Heikki Ruonen, who is, and also Max Westergaard, if I butcher that name anymore, both from Finland. And Jet Lachenko is injured, or else he would have been there, but he's a shoo-in as well to make it. And, it's, he has a groin injury. I hope he doesn't get off to a bad start of the season. Last thing Jet Lachenko needs. Jack Nesbitt was not invited, and a lot of people are going to make a big deal about that. So these games are going on right now. It's kind of like you're trying to decide who, like, the extras and the fourth liners are. It's not the type of thing where you're going to change a lot of minds for the first, 12 or 14 spots or whatever, But
there have obviously been a lot of controversy about Canada's decisions on who's been on that team the last few years. They've traditionally gone with bigger, more physical players in lieu of skilled players, and that a lot of people believe has led to them not performing as well in some of these tournaments. So I'm not surprised that Jack Nesbitt wasn't invited. He's very skilled, but he's kind of a bigger guy who needs to work on his skating. And Canada's going to have a really good roster, but it is going to be interesting to see what they do if they kind of combat that notion they maybe with the skill guys. So we'll see what happens. It's always kind of fun to see, but it's just the summer, and who knows what to expect. Westergaard's an interesting prospect. I think he's the smaller kid. He's like one of the only smaller guys that the Flyers took in the draft this year. He's got a lot of skill. We'll see what happens with him. But yeah, it'll be fun to see Murtagh. His obviously he's got a lot of hard skills. He's a very good skater. He's a good shooter. He's got a nose for the net. So be interesting.
Yeah. Hoping some of these guys make it. The ones on the bubble, like we talked about. I was just going back and forth a little bit with Russ Cohen, and he was talking about Spencer Gill, because I wasn't sure that he was going to make it, and that really, the fact that he got invited is a good sign, and he's probably going to be a better prospect than a lot of people thought when he was drafted. But the idea that he's going to be there in the World Juniors is probably a stretch. We'll see. So we talked about earlier, Shep, about the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. They made some wholesale changes in their coaching staff, and they have hired John Snowden, who was an assistant coach last year. Also, Nick Schultz and Teres Wallin are joining the staff. And you could see that the Flyers are really taking that next step as they go from a veteran-laden squad down there to having more drafted guys that they want to develop. And I think they realize they need more than what they were getting from Lappy. So what was your thought?
I liked it. I didn't mind. I know Snowden has some, coaching experience elsewhere, and he has the experience. I wasn't worried about that, and I think it's a better connection for the players to come in. Apparently, they're going to be sharing the same system, so to speak, and we're not going to hear this nonsense about well, they all should know how to play 5-1-1 or whatever it is, or whatever kind of system it is. They shouldn't be. They should that should have been out the door. Like to say something like that. Everybody knows how to play them, and when they come up, because like I said before, a lot of these Phantoms, when they did get the call-ups, it wasn't fair to them because it seemed like they were trying to assimilate to the pro game, and that's not what the NHL is for. That's what the AHL is for. So I was happy to see that the systems were coming in. I went to, like I said, rookie camp, and it was different. It was a lot different than I'd seen in the past. You had all the coaches out there on the ice at the same time. They had a couple of like legends out there, Flyers legends as well. But the thing was, it seemed like if somebody messed up, somebody was right there to correct it. That's what I saw. I don't know if anybody else saw it. I don't care if it's, some people say, well, it was Chris Stewart was there and he was it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You have a pro telling you how to do something better. And he played X amount of games in the NHL. You should listen to him. So no matter who's giving you the information and who's giving you, I thought this camp was a different field than last couple of years. So I was happy for that. So I just think too, with all these influx of new players, I mean, they made the playoffs barely last year, and they kind of shocked everybody and played a little bit better than I think anybody. They took Hershey to 7 games. So I think they got a chance to do something significant again if it comes in, and then all of a sudden you're getting an influx of other players after their seasons are done, and hopefully you got Martone and maybe Luchenko and coming after the fact too. So it should be. I mean, imagine having that as backup, waiting for that to come onto your team. So I think Phantoms are going to be a hot ticket. I think Penn State's going to be a hot ticket, and I think that hockey in Pennsylvania just got a little bit more competitive. Let's just say.
Yeah, make sure you have Flow Hockey to catch the AHL games and the ESPN Plus to catch some of the NCAA games. Dan?
My take on Ian LePerriere is I feel like he's just sort of hung around because he's a really nice guy, right? Like people like Ian LePerriere. And so I think that he's hung around longer than what his track record actually sort of shows that he should have been around. He didn't do a really good job with the special teams with the Flyers when he was here. I never really thought that when you hear him talk, he had anything all that insightful to say necessarily, but he's a good guy. I was a little surprised when they made him the head coach of the Phantoms because it didn't seem like necessarily a great fit for me. Because he just, again, doesn't, and I could be wrong, right? He doesn't seem like he's that analytically minded. And he doesn't seem like he's that sharp when he's talking about the X's and the O's. Just seems like a good guy. So I'm not surprised that they sort of moved him out of that role. And I think that we will see some improvement at the AHL level. Not that the team this year was bad or anything, but they are going to have some influx of guys. Like I think Oliver Bonk, Denver Barkey, those guys will certainly help at that level. I think they've got a lot of young guys who could rebound a little bit, take the next step. So that's my kind of take on LePerriere. And I think it's going to improve things from the organizational perspective. I've never really thought that they viewed him as like a star, so to speak. Like I think Riley Armstrong is a guy who you hear him speak and you say to yourself, not to quote Office Space, but like this guy has upper management potential written all over him, right? That's Riley Armstrong. I never got that sense about Ian LePerriere. Like, I feel like Ian LePerriere should be one of these alumni that's like in the suite smoozing with fans, not necessarily like in the trenches trying to develop your young players. So that's kind of like was my take on LePerrier.
Well, yeah, he took 2 pucks to the face, so that buys a lot of credit. I mean, look, the fans loved him because of that. He stood there, he blocked 2 shots with his face. It kind of messed him up for a little bit, but look, all of his, if you listen to his things, it was always like, he works hard, he does this, he puts in the effort, and that effort is only one part of it. You got to have the skill level, and you have to have people that know how to teach the skill level. And I think that's where it was lacking. It's not for hard or not for anything. Like, I just think that's where he came up short.
No, I agree with that. I think the other aspect, and we discussed it last time, the fact that they're going to have a seamless transition in terms of systems, schemes in general between the Phantoms and the Flyers. So there's not this, it's tough enough to adjust from the AHL to the NHL without having to play guessing games about coverages, systems, and things like that. So I think that's really important. So before we move along, just to remind everybody, we are brought to you by Jim South Street. 40 years of the best cheesesteaks, hoagies, and fries in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. You got to check them out. So if you're down at 400 South Street, tell them the O&B Puckcast and Flyers Nitty Gritty sent you down there. Maybe they'll do something for you. I don't know. Maybe it'll give us a holler, but we appreciate it. And certainly if you live down there, use DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever it takes to get that delicious food right to your door. Jim South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. So moving right along, we talked about systems. Bill Meltzer at Hockey Hot Stove has been talking about some systems differences between what Tocchet is going to be running versus what we saw from Torts, and Anthony Mingione also from the Off the Post podcast is now he's full-time doing that in terms of his full-time in writing at Hockey Hot Stove. So check out Anthony. We'd like having him on as well. But the Flyers are going to be playing kind of like this box and one kind of systems, and it's going to be different. And also when you look at their penalty kill schemes, and it kind of ties in, Dan, to what Matvei Michkov was using in an interview, and I thought there was a tie in there. He just doesn't understand dump and chase. It's really stupid and all that. But on the other hand, the Flyers were a really good rush team with possession into the zone, but a lot of times they'd just be one and done. So how do you square what is the concern of Matvei with some of the things that Tocchet wants to do and the changes that'll be brought about?
Yeah, I mean, that was very funny. You saw the interview with Michkov on the ice in Russia where he's talking about how he doesn't understand dump and chase, because if you have the puck, why would you want to get rid of the puck? Meanwhile, you've got a new head coach whose style is very kind of focused on a dump and chase type of style, like we saw from the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. I think that there's going to be a happy medium, right? Rick Tocchet talks about how he loves coaching young players and teaching, but I think he's also very adaptable. Like, he had a guy like Quinn Hughes in Vancouver, right? He's not going to tell Quinn Hughes to play a dump and chase style when he's on the ice. When Quinn Hughes has the puck, you don't want him giving the puck up unless it's directly onto a teammate's stick. And I think that you'll see a little bit of the same kind of thing with Matvei Michkov, where it'll be like, hey, Matvei, when you're on the ice, we're not going to stifle your talent. Like, if you have the puck, you can prove to us that you can be like Nikita Kucherov with, the puck being a magnet on your stick in the offensive zone. Of course, getting into the offensive zone first. But I think that they're not going to stifle Michkov. And if Michkov can prove that he's very good and adept at consistently getting the puck into the zone without doing a dump and chase style, maybe they'll find some line mates that specifically mesh with that style with Michkov. And that's how it will work, right? Or maybe Tocchet will convince Michkov, look, your line mates are so good at dump and chase that we're going to get the puck in the offensive zone, and then you're going to get the puck and you're going to be able to do whatever you want with it in the zone. I don't think they're going to make hard and fast rules for guys like Michkov with that kind of thing, right? I think they will be smart enough to make exceptions. And if they are able to get a defenseman who is able to do some of the things that Quinn Hughes is able to do at some point, maybe it'll be the same kind of thing. So that will be interesting to watch. I think Taka will implement his style while also allowing for individual creativity from some of the better players on the team is what I would think.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is when Taka got hired, Rick was there talking to a couple of different parties, people that we're all familiar with, saying, hey, listen, I can adapt the way I coach to the personnel. Don't worry about that. If I'm not going to, like you were saying, I'm not going to tell a guy who's good at, rushing the puck to pass up opportunities to stay within our system and stifle these guys. And, if somebody like Quinn Hughes and some of the other players that rave about him, and one of the reasons we were able to get Christian Dvorak, a totally different kind of player, when you have players who play different style games all saying, Taka is one of their favorite coaches that they ever played for, that's a good sign. And the best coaches can coach to the talent and to the style that the roster dictates. I don't think that's a stretch, but we'll find out. That's for sure. Jeff?
I will say this. After last year, I mean, there's a couple of guys that I think kind of took steps forward, maybe 2 or 3 that showed that they were harder to knock off the puck now. So I'm thinking that, even if you're carrying it in, or I know they dumped a little bit last year and they chased a lot, but once they got the puck, especially the Cates line, I mean, they seemed to hold on to it almost the whole time they were on the ice when they did get it. So that's a good sign. I mean, at least there are players that can actually carry the puck and protect it. I think that will free up other players. Like Coots is a good, if Coots comes back to form and he's on the line with either Konecny or whoever it is, he's going to have that ability to hold that. And so will Cates. So maybe even Brink, to hold these things that were harder to knock off. It's going to create more openings, especially with Taka's system. And I think you'll be happy with some of the results here. It's just a gut feeling, but I think all this will play. And if you're going to talk about getting handcuffed by a system, a good coach doesn't, you're making adjustments, not because of personnel so much, but you're making in real time, adjustments to fit the situation, depending upon the score, depending upon, who's out on the ice at that moment. So I think he's got the mental capacity to do that. And I think you're going to see a different kind of Flyers team this year. They're going to be a little bit more up on their skates, and it's going to be a little more at ease, let's just say, and it allows them to be more flexible to shift into different skills or different systems that they might have to implement, or different plays.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about some of the players that took a step back, like Cam York and, our buddy Vinit, talking about Owen Tippett, Owen Tippett should, with that body type, probably, I mean, he has so much power in his game that he doesn't realize.
He doesn't use it.
He doesn't use it as, you see that a little bit more, and he makes some nice passes sometimes, but sometimes, he led the Flyers in shots attempted, but what was this? Now I'm forgetting the stat. Didn't he have the lead, less shots last year than the year before, or something? The shots on net. I forget what the stat was, but it was very unflattering, and it spoke to what, the problems he was having getting the puck on net. But yeah, he's not a high IQ hockey player, and it's very frustrating. And I think he's trying to make the highlight reel play, where if he would just simplify his game without dumbing it down, but just concentrate on what he does well, and let his teammates help him out. Yeah. So yeah, he took 100 less shots last year than the year before. So there you go. Our buddy Vinny he's their constant companion, and we're going to have more on it at this rate. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, too. Yeah. I think Tocchet will be a big help to somebody like Cam York. I think hopefully Cam York gets a little more power play time. I think, like Dan has said on a couple of shows now, you watch him all through his career, he was a power play guy up until, and he got a little bit of power play time. He's just his shots got to get through. And I think that's the biggest issue. And, I really don't think there was any, I guess when he was on Torts' good side, it was okay. But when he got on Torts' bad side, it was just like, well, we're not even going to try to improve your game. We're just going to push you off of this and just, I thought it was a kind of a waste of a player there. I mean, that was one of the reasons why we drafted him, because, he was a power play guy, and we all thought there would be a potential there. So I'm hoping Tocchet, that's my biggest thing I'll be watching this year, is hopefully the resurgence of Cam York and resurgence of the power play.
Was Cam York ever on Tortorella's good side? I mean, it seems
that's
like
a good point.
It seems like those. I guess early on,
the first year,
he improved. Something clearly happened between those two guys where, if you've got John Tortorella telling a player that if he re-signs here, he's going to make his life a living hell, like as has been documented that he said, it's kind of tough for a player. So I don't think their relationship. I don't think that York is going to have to improve with Tocchet. I think it's going to be great for him. And to Chef's point, look, he was the power play quarterback on the U.S. national development team with Jack Hughes, and
he was captain too, wasn't he?
I'm not sure.
I think he was captain of that team when they won.
But either way, he should get another shot on the power play. It should be an open competition for that point man on the power play. And you've got to think that York, Drysdale. Look, I thought, and I don't know what's going to happen with Emil Andre. I'm sort of worried that he's a guy that they're going to give up on because they've got York now signed long term. I actually thought that at times he was the most effective power play guy for the Flyers. He had like a few game stretch where he looked really good. And Emil Andre is aggressive, which is what I like about him. He can be really aggressive. His first stint with the Flyers this year, he was so good. I mean, I thought he was playing as well as any defenseman did for the team this year in that first stint. Then he gets injured. He was never the same after that, right? But he's a guy that another guy I would like to see get a fair shot. Obviously, Drysdale, they're going to give a big shot to on the power play. I just don't know if he has that inherent aggressiveness in his game to be that quarterback on the power play like you'd want to see. I mean, the Anaheim game where he jumped into the play, he scored that one really nice goal where he jumped into the play on the left wing. That's the kind of stuff I want to see from Drysdale. But I just don't know if he has that aggression in him. We need one of these guys to take a step forward. I think York will be a lot better this year. So the power play is definitely going to be a area of focus, and I think they need to have an open competition for that. Who's going to be the D-man on the power play, and York definitely deserves a shot because it seems like Tortorella the last few years has done everything he could have to stifle York's offensive development. It's certainly on the power play. So hopefully that's something that we get to see develop this year.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have any of that petty infighting with Tocchet. I think, and I also believe that we're going to have a clean slate. And the guys, on the one hand, for guys that need that second chance, then they're going to get it. Or for the guys that think they're established, they might have to, re-up their commitment if they're resting on their laurels. Although this team, this room, I don't see a lot of that on this team. I think they're just not good enough. I think that was one thing Tortorella, well, among a couple of things Tortorella did very well. He cleared the room of guys that were kind of thought they were better than they were, Provorov, that were kind of just showing up, giving effort, but not really anything special. Kevin Hayes, So, Jinx, remember that was a kid. Yeah. So, so I think that's where that is at. So I guess one of the final topics I wanted to discuss tonight was I think the Flyers are done. I don't expect any. I mean, they might sign a guy who needs a job in training camp if there's an injury or something like that. You never know. And I could see maybe if something can happen with a goaltender that they didn't expect. I don't think so. I think this is what we're seeing here is a squad. And so in one of your favorites, Dan, Scott Wheeler had a top 100 list of prospects. And, the Flyers just came off a draft that most people think was pretty good, B+ or higher in the eyes of most people. Maybe not Steve Cornianos, but I think even Steve gave him a B. And we're talking about our buddy, the draft analyst, the draft analyst at Substack.com. Check him out. Good guy. And but there's only 3 of those players in Scott Wheeler's top 100. You have Martone, and then you have Bonk, and who's rated higher than Luchenko, who's only ranked 54th. So it's like, what is there an issue with how the Flyers have drafted, or is it that they've drafted a lot of futures, guys like Nesbitt, who wasn't going to get the invite to the WJC, they're not going to make the team this year, but because of how big they are, maybe a guy Spencer Gill is a very similar category, guys that might take a little bit longer. But if you look at that 5-year window that was referenced by Porter Martone in his decision-making process, the Flyers are going to end up having guys that climb up the list over the next couple of years.
I mean, look, you asked the question, if they had taken Zev Buium over Jet Luchenko last year, they would have had 2 guys in the top 10, right? I mean, it's that and Nesbitt was another one who was a reach, right? Like there were maybe some other guys they could have taken there who would have been higher up on the list, but the Flyers believe in these guys that they're drafting. They clearly believe in Jet Luchenko. I still wonder if maybe there was something there with Zev Buium's agent with the Gauthier connection. That's one of the reasons they didn't want to take him. But they passed up Buium, and that's a guy that would have put them much higher on the prospect lists. I don't think they care that much about those lists. This year, they got good draft ratings because they took Martone, who is very highly rated everywhere. He was, he's a top 5 pick. Most places had him rated in the top 5. But most pundits have the Flyers with a good draft because of quantity and sort of mid-range quality with a combination of quality. They really only got one guy who is a top-tier prospect. And then they got a bunch of other guys who I think we like and who some of the prospect pundits like, but none of them are guys that are projecting as 70-point players, right? The defenseman that the Flyers have, they don't have a defenseman who fits that bill. Oliver Bonk, I think, has, if you look at where he was drafted, I think he's kind of performed to that so far. And maybe even, I don't know, I don't think the year this year was that great. So I think he's cooled a little bit on some lists, and he was never that high to begin with on a lot of these lists. So the Flyers don't have a lot of really good prospects. I think I was thinking about this. We talked a bunch about how we thought they might do an offer sheet for someone. And obviously there were not many offer sheets in the NHL this summer at all.
There's nothing going on this summer.
Right, nothing going on with it. But I think the Flyers sort of realized, hey, we could be really bad again next year. We can't give up our first-round pick. If we give up our first-round pick and we win the lottery, that's just, you might as well just close the doors down. So, I don't know. I think that they're gonna need to. They obviously, we've talked about this. They need to find a way to get more elite talent, and I think they're going to be bad this coming year, and maybe they get another high draft pick. But the reality is that in the eyes of most prospect pundits, aside from Porter Martone right now, the Flyers don't really have an elite prospect now that Michkov has kind of graduated from that. So you compare that with a team look, they're going to have to go about winning a different way. Because look at a team like San Jose. They've got Macklin Celebrini. They've got Michael Misa. They've got Will Smith. They've got Sam Dickinson. They've got Yaroslav Askarov, who's probably the best goalie prospect in the world. They're not going to match a team like that's prospects. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to match it like the Anaheim Ducks prospects. They're not going to match the prospects that these teams have. They've got to win a different way. And the way that the Flyers think that they're going to win is by building this sort of team that has got great guys in the locker room, has some really good players. Clearly this year they're building towards bigger players who have compete levels. So they're not trying to win the same way that San Jose is. They were never going to tank, and it's not going to be like that, right? We're going to have to hope that they can thread the needle with trying to figure out a way to create a perennial cup contender the way that they're building it. That's kind of what it comes down to.
I also think that they have this hope that there's going to be a free agent who comes loose, and they are just going to plunk down a whole wad of cash to try and get that player.
Yep.
And it's just like when they got Pronger to kind of try to put them over the top in 2010. And I think that's what they're looking for, whether it's a defense, it'd probably be a defenseman or a center. It could also be a goalie, but I doubt that. I would say it's probably going to be a defenseman or a center. I mean, it could be a trade, but right now, the way I don't know how, if they have enough assets to make that kind of trade. But free agency looks like it would probably be the way. Chef?
Well, I think they're going to be it seems, I shouldn't say I'm going to think. It seems to be leaning towards like building through free agency, kind of like, and possibly a small trade here or there too. It's like look what Florida did, to get to Kachuk and all that. And their team, they're built for a playoff run, that team, and I think Danny and Keith are smart enough to see what's been dominating the last couple, 4 or 5 years is teams that are built for not necessarily to win the President's Cup. They're in here to win a 7-game series. All right. Anybody, what's a football, it's any given Sunday, Friday, I don't know what hockey's term is for it, but anybody can beat anybody anytime. It's just like, look at Team USA in the Olympics, So that's what I think. I think they're gearing this. I am curious to see, because I like how when Luchenko was in the World Juniors, he was good. He was fun. And he played a lot better than what he's been playing at in juniors. I just would like to see him get away from golf and go to a better team to play with better players.
I mean, Guelph.
Golf.
Because I know we're going to hear it now with our live stream. Go ahead.
Guelph. Sorry.
Yes. So, I know it sounds like you belched or something, but it is Guelph. Yeah.
That's the name of the team. Don't blame me.
Yeah.
So I just think that like if he needs a better crop of players to play with, and I think he's like, it sucks. The age rules are what they are, but he just needs to get to play with people that have the same skill set as him, and he's not getting it on that team. So I'm hoping maybe they can work a trade or something in season to get him some better playmates and get out there and really get to it. Because I think when he plays with a better crop of kids, he's been shown that he can elevate his game. And I think that's what the upper management thinks as well in the scouts. So we'll see.
Yeah, and the thing about Luchenko is such a key player for them. And that's why this draft pick, to me, is one of the fulcrums of what they're trying to do, whether it's going to succeed or not. A lot of that is going to fall on Luchenko. They passed up Konsta Helenius in addition to Boyum. Konsta Helenius would have been a very safe pick, and he had a pretty damn good year at the AHL level, which is higher, and he was more impressive in his AHL stint than Luchenko was. But then again, things aren't linear. Luchenko is also a younger player than Helenius. He's a little bit younger within the draft year. So we'll have to see. And his speed is game changing. So and the vision he's got, he needs to play at the right level to develop. We feel pretty good about what's happening with Martone, but like Shane Malloy said when we had him on, he said there was talk in the air at that draft that the rules were going to change, and they could foresee the opportunity Martone is taking advantage of could have been availed to Luchenko. So, it's a shame they signed him the way they did. And like I've said, it was probably Tortorella pounding the table. We don't have centers. We need his speed to play, the way I want to play. And it was just a bad move, but it is what it is. So, gents, the last thing is the Flyers exhibition season starts on Sunday, September 21st, which would mean that we don't have official dates for the training camp, but considering that and the rookie game that we talked about from the outset being on the 12th, would seem to indicate that in between the 13th and the 21st, that is when training camp will start. That would only make sense. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to going forward with the for the Philadelphia Flyers, barring any new news.
I'm excited to see I'm excited about Trevor Zegras. Like I'm excited to. I think he's going to bring. Look, last year, right? It was all about Matvei Michkov, and it was so exciting. We've got this shiny new toy. Hopefully, one of the best young players in the league. He fulfilled that promise. It's been tough finding things to get excited about with this team, but I'm excited about Trevor Zegras. I want to see what he can do if he can rejuvenate his career. He was one of the best young players in the league. He was electric when he came into the league. He was on the cover of the NHL video game. I want to see if he can resurrect his career. As my cat's getting up now, she's excited about Zegras too. Like that's what it's been hard to like manufacture excitement about being a Flyers fan, because again, we're faced with going into a season where there's really no expectation that we're going to be a cup contender. It's difficult as a fan to deal with that. You've got to find things to be excited about, and that's what I'm excited about Zegras. I want to see what he can do for the Flyers. I want to see if he can match up well with Michkov. That's what I want to see. So I'm excited about that. That's the main thing I'm looking forward to Flyer season this year.
Chef?
Well, I'm excited for a lot of things. I think it's a whole bunch of little pieces, because I think if all the little pieces hit right, they could be a very fun team to watch. All right. They might not be a playoff team, but if they can get close enough and screw up, force Danny's hand, it could become interesting. Like you said, a trade at the last minute to at least reward the players for what they've done. We've seen them do that before. So, and I will say this, I hope Ladar embraces the Philadelphia fandom, because I can totally see him embracing Darth Ladar and wearing like a black and orange mask and getting into it. I think that, you know how some players come here and they're not here for a long time, but they make an impression and they become fan favorites. In fact, like a lot of these players end up staying in the area too. We've talked about that on other shows. So I just think there's a potential, because I saw the interview that I think it was Jason did with him, Jason Martinez, and it was just like, he asked him about it point blank, and I thought, oh, he's never watched it. Now there's a guy that's got to go out there, watch it, and then embrace the Philadelphia fandom and just sit there and just go, and get into it. And then I just think it's a huge potential there.
Well, he's got to stop the puck first.
That'll be part of it. When you have all those fans behind you, and just play average or slightly above average goaltending here, and you'll be adored for at least one season.
Yeah, well, my experience, I've fortunately, for some new viewers, I've been following the team for 55 years. So I've had the advantage of watching a lot of winning Flyers hockey, including the 2 cups and 6 other trips to the Stanley Cup Finals. And this last 10 years, 12 years or so is such an anomaly for what the Flyers have been. It's been frustrating, but for you guys, it's actually been worse, because you don't really know anything else in a lot of cases. Or, it's been that since 2010. It's particularly, but certainly for the kids in their early 20s or teenagers, forget it. You wouldn't even know what that looks like almost. So yeah, it's frustrating. So Chef, why don't you give people your last word of the day and tell them where they can catch you on social media?
Yeah, my last word of the day is, just judging by what Danny did this past season, he made it was a time to add stuff back. Now pieces are in place. Are they the best pieces? Are they going to be the final pieces? No, probably not. But enjoy the pieces that you have on the playing field right now, because what you have there is going to be better than last year. I believe it's going to be a very entertaining team. I will wait till I see camp to make my prediction of what I think the record's going to be. Last 2 years, 3 years actually, I've been dead on balls. So I'm happy about that. And if anybody wants to argue with me, find me on X or Twitter or whatever you're calling it. Chef to the left B on Twitter. All right.
You got it. Dan, where can people catch you? And if you have anything else you want to tell the folks?
Yeah, they can find me on X at dsilver88. I do a Bluesky account. I haven't really used it all that much. But I do agree. I think if you asked me who was going to be the most improved player on the Flyers this coming season, I would say Vladar is going to be. We talked about him before. I'm excited to see what he can do with a bigger role. He's kind of been in situations where, the Bruins preferred Swayman to him, but I don't necessarily think that Swayman was better all the time than him. And then Calgary had Dustin Wolf last year. So I think that if he's given a fair shake, I think that Vladar could be a really good goalie here in Philadelphia. And I think him and Urson will be a good duo. But, that's about it. Like I said, just trying to, get through the summer and head towards camp. And there'll be some more enthusiasm this year, just with having a guy like Zegras around. So, and I'm excited. We've seen Mitch Cobb, the videos of him. You can see that he's just getting thicker. His neck's thicker. Yeah, exactly. He's it's just going to be exciting to see that his continued development. So hopefully between him and Zegras, they can take the power play to the next level this coming season.
Yeah, at the very least, the power play's got to be better, and the goaltending has to be at least league average. I mean, if they do that, they'll be much more watchable than they've been the last couple of years. That's for sure. So anyway, you can follow the O&B Puckcast on several podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, Amazon Audible. Of course, we're on YouTube. If you could subscribe, hit that notification bell. We really appreciate it. We're on Facebook. You can follow us on X and on Bluesky at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck, on GETTR at O&B Puckcast, at O&B Puckcast. So if you could, let me see what else here. So whatever applies to your platform, of course, we need you to subscribe. We really do appreciate it. It moves us up the charts. You can tell I'm getting tired. It moves us up the charts when people are looking for Philadelphia Flyer podcast. And we really do appreciate you joining us tonight for our live stream debut for YouTube. Thanks for listening. And until next time, everybody, which I think is going to be next week. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Flyers prospects. We're going to rank them with our buddy, the prospect Don. So until then, take care.